I was sitting in the front row, my heart pounding with anticipation. The theater was filled with an expectant hush as the curtains slowly drew back. There she was, stepping into the spotlight in a dazzling costume, her presence commanding the stage. My wife, Alice, was a vision of talent and grace, captivating the audience with every line she delivered. The pride I felt in that moment was indescribable. After the show, Alice introduced me to a new actor in the company, Jason. He was charming and talented, with an easy charisma that drew people to him. I couldn't help but notice how Alice's eyes sparkled when she spoke to him. It was clear they had formed a strong connection during the production. As the weeks went by, Alice spent more and more time at the theater. She often stayed late for rehearsals, explaining that the new play demanded extra effort and dedication. At first, I didn't mind. I understood the demands of her job and admired her commitment to her craft. But then, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. Alice became more distant, her conversations with me growing shorter and less frequent. She started coming home later and later, her explanations about additional rehearsals beginning to wear thin. One evening, as she was preparing to leave for another late-night session, I caught a glimpse of a text message from Jason on her phone. It was a brief exchange, filled with affectionate words that made my stomach churn with suspicion. The following week, my suspicions only grew. Alice was constantly on her phone, smiling at messages she didn't share with me. She seemed to be hiding something, and the intimacy that once characterized our relationship was slipping away. Unable to shake off my growing doubts, I decided to follow her one night. When Alice told me she had another late rehearsal, I discreetly trailed her to a nearby cafe. There, through the window, I saw her with Jason. They were sitting close, their heads bent together in deep conversation. And then, to my utter devastation, I saw them kiss. That kiss shattered my world. I felt a wave of anger, hurt, and betrayal crash over me. When Alice returned home that night, I confronted her. At first, she denied everything, but eventually she broke down and admitted to the affair with Jason. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. The woman I had loved and trusted had been unfaithful, and I was left to grapple with the emotional wreckage. The morning after Alice's confession, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. My thoughts were a chaotic jumble, and the weight of her betrayal pressed heavily on my chest. I knew I needed to confront Jason directly, to hear his side and try to make sense of everything. I called him and asked to meet. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near the theater. As I walked in, I saw him sitting at a corner table, looking uneasy. When I approached, he stood up and extended his hand, but I ignored it and sat down, fixing him with a cold stare. "Why?" I demanded, cutting straight to the point. "Why did you do it?" Jason looked down, his face flushed with guilt. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant for this to happen. Alice and we just connected in a way I can't explain. It started with rehearsals, and then it just escalated." His words felt hollow, but I listened, needing to hear everything. "Do you love her?" I asked, my voice trembling. He hesitated, then nodded. "I do, but I know it's wrong. I never wanted to hurt you." His confession left me numb. I had hoped for some kind of explanation that would make sense of the chaos, but instead I was left with more questions and a deeper sense of loss. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I said, my anger boiling to the surface. "You've destroyed my marriage, my trust in her. Do you even care?" Jason looked stricken. "I do care, and I'm truly sorry. If I could take it back, I would, but I can't change what's happened." I stood up abruptly, unable to bear any more. "Stay away from her," I said, my voice low and fierce. "This is between me and Alice now." As I walked out of the cafe, a wave of helplessness washed over me. The confrontation had brought no relief, no closure. The only thing left was to face Alice again and figure out what came next. That evening, I returned home to find Alice waiting, her eyes red from crying. We sat down in the living room, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I got lost in the excitement, in the newness of it all. But I realize now how much I've hurt you and how much I've jeopardized." Her apology did little to ease my pain. "Why, Alice? Why did you do it?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "I don't know," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I guess I felt neglected, lonely. Jason made me feel special, needed. But I see now that I was selfish and foolish. I don't want to lose you. Her words hung in the air, and I felt torn. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to find a way to move past this. But another part of me was filled with a deep, gnawing hurt that couldn't be easily erased. "We need time apart," I finally said, my voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "I need to think, to process all of this. Maybe some space will help us figure out what to do next." Alice nodded, though it was clear the idea of separation pained her. "I understand. I'll move out for a while. Give you the space you need." As she packed her things, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. This wasn't the outcome I had ever imagined for us, but it felt like the only way forward. Watching her leave, I wondered if our relationship could ever be mended, or if this was the beginning of the end. The days that followed were some of the loneliest of my life. The house felt emptier than ever without Alice's presence. I tried to immerse myself in work and hobbies, but nothing could distract me from the pervasive sense of loss. Friends and family reached out, offering support, but their words often felt hollow. The wound was too fresh, too deep. Nights were the worst. I would lie in our bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage in my mind. The happy memories felt tainted, overshadowed by Alice's betrayal. I wondered if there had been signs I had missed, if I had been too blind or too trusting. The uncertainty gnawed at me. During this time, I decided to reach out to a therapist. I needed an outlet for my pain and confusion, someone to help me navigate the tumultuous emotions that plagued me. In our sessions, I began to unravel the layers of my hurt, understanding the depths of my anger and sadness. It was a slow process, but it was a step towards healing. One afternoon, a week after Alice had moved out, I received a text from her. "Can we talk?" I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face her again, but I knew that avoiding her forever wasn't a solution. We needed to have an honest conversation about our future. We met at a small park near our house. Alice looked tired, her face drawn and pale. We sat on a bench, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable. "How have you been?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. "I've been better," I replied honestly. "It's been hard, Alice. Really hard." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I know. It's been hard for me too. I've had a lot of time to think, to reflect on what I did. I know I hurt you deeply, and for that, I'm truly sorry." I took a deep breath, struggling to keep my emotions in check. "Why, Alice? Why did you risk everything we had?" She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "I don't have a simple answer. I felt lonely, neglected. Jason made me feel wanted, special. But it was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I realized now that I was looking for something outside that I should have been looking for within our marriage." Her words were sincere, but they didn't erase the pain. "Do you still love him?" I asked, dreading the answer. "No," she said firmly. "It was a fling, a foolish escape from reality. I love you, and I want to make things right, if that's even possible." I looked at her, searching for any sign of deceit, but all I saw was genuine remorse. "I need time, Alice. Time to figure out if I can move past this, if we can rebuild what we had." She nodded, her expression one of acceptance. "I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes. I just want you to know that I'm committed to making this work, to earning back your trust." As we parted ways, I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the pain. It wouldn't be easy, and there were no guarantees, but maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us to heal. I walked back home, the weight of uncertainty still heavy on my shoulders, but with a newfound determination to face the future, whatever it might hold. The following weeks were a test of resilience. Alice had moved in with a friend, giving us both the space we needed. The quiet of the house, once a refuge, now felt oppressive. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind occupied, but the silence was always there, a constant reminder of what I was trying to escape. Therapy sessions became a lifeline. My therapist, Dr. Harris, helped me untangle the complex web of emotions that ensnared me. One afternoon, she suggested something that took me by surprise. "Have you considered talking to Alice about what both of you need to rebuild trust?" The idea seemed daunting, but I knew she was right. We couldn't move forward without confronting the issues head-on. I called Alice, and we arranged to meet at our house, a neutral ground that was both familiar and charged with memories. When she arrived, we sat down at the kitchen table, the place where we had shared countless meals and conversations. The tension was palpable, but there was also a sense of determination. We both wanted to find a way through this, even if we didn't yet know how. "I've been seeing a therapist," I began, breaking the ice. "It's helped me understand a lot about my feelings and what I need to move forward." Alice looked relieved. "I've been seeing one too," she admitted. "It's made me realize how much I've taken you for granted and how much work I need to do on myself." We talked for hours, peeling back the layers of our relationship. Alice confessed how she had felt neglected, not just in recent months but over several years. She explained that Jason's attention had filled a void she hadn't even realized was there. "I never meant to make you feel that way," I said, my voice thick with regret. "I got caught up in my own world and didn't see what was happening to us." We discussed setting boundaries and creating a plan to rebuild trust. It wasn't going to be easy, but we both knew it was necessary. We agreed on transparency, sharing our schedules, being honest about our feelings, and checking in with each other regularly. Trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight, but with consistent effort, it was possible. One evening, about a month after our initial meeting, Alice suggested we go to one of our favorite restaurants. It was a small step, a way to reconnect in a space that held happy memories for us. As we sat across from each other, I realized how much I had missed these moments, the simple joy of being together. "I'm glad we did this," Alice said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "It feels like we're starting to find our way back." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "Yeah, it does. We still have a long way to go, but I'm willing to try if you are." Her eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of determination and vulnerability. "I'm all in," she said softly. As we left the restaurant, I felt a cautious optimism. We were taking the first steps on a difficult journey, but we were doing it together. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like we had a chance. Rebuilding trust was a slow and arduous process. Alice and I navigated each day carefully, trying to find our footing in this new, uncertain landscape. We continued our separate therapy sessions and had begun attending couples counseling together. It was in these sessions that we learned to communicate better, to express our needs and fears without judgment or anger. One Saturday morning, Alice and I decided to go for a hike, something we used to love doing before life became so complicated. The trail was familiar, winding through lush forests and offering breathtaking views of the valley below. As we walked, the fresh air and physical exertion seemed to loosen the tension that had been building inside me. We reached a clearing with a beautiful overlook and sat down to rest. The silence between us was comfortable, a stark contrast to the awkwardness that had characterized our interactions in recent months. I turned to Alice, feeling the need to share something that had been on my mind. "I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness," I began, staring out at the horizon. "Not just forgiving you, but also forgiving myself. I've realized that I played a part in what happened, even if it wasn't intentional." Alice looked at me, her eyes filled with empathy. "I know. And I've been working on forgiving myself too. I hurt you deeply, and I need to make amends for that. But we both need to let go of the guilt if we're going to move forward." We talked for hours, sharing our fears and hopes for the future. It was the most honest and open conversation we had had since the affair came to light. I felt a sense of release, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. That evening, back at home, Alice suggested we cook dinner together. It was a small gesture, but it felt significant. We worked side by side in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and stirring sauces, finding a rhythm that was both familiar and new. As we sat down to eat, the atmosphere was warm and relaxed. Over the next few weeks, we made a conscious effort to spend quality time together. We revisited old hobbies, like gardening and playing board games, and discovered new ones, like taking a cooking class and trying out different cuisines. Each shared experience brought us a little closer, helping to rebuild the bond that had been so badly damaged. One evening, after a particularly enjoyable day, Alice turned to me with a serious expression. "I want to apologize again," she said softly, "for everything. I know words can't undo the hurt, but I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work. I love you, and I want us to be happy again." I took her hand, feeling the sincerity in her words. "I know, Alice, and I'm committed too. It's going to take time, but I'm willing to put in the effort if you are." As we sat there, holding hands, I felt a cautious optimism. We had a long way to go, and there would undoubtedly be setbacks along the way, but we were on the right path. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like we had a real chance at finding happiness together. The progress we had made felt promising, but the journey was far from over. Trust, once broken, is not easily mended. There were moments of doubt and fear, times when the scars of betrayal seemed too deep to heal. Yet with each passing day, we learned to navigate the complexities of our renewed relationship. One afternoon, Alice suggested we go on a weekend trip, just the two of us. She had found a charming cabin in the mountains, a place where we could disconnect from the world and focus solely on each other. At first, I was hesitant. The idea of being alone with her for an extended period made me anxious, but I knew that facing these fears was part of the healing process. We packed our bags and set off early Saturday morning. The drive to the cabin was filled with tentative conversation, a mix of old familiarity and new uncertainty. The scenery was beautiful, with the winding mountain roads offering breathtaking views at every turn. When we arrived, the cabin was even more picturesque than I had imagined, nestled among tall pines and overlooking a serene lake. Inside, the cabin was cozy and inviting, with a stone fireplace and large windows that let in plenty of natural light. We unpacked and decided to take a walk along the lake. The tranquility of the setting seemed to ease the tension between us, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of peace. As we walked, Alice took my hand, and we strolled in comfortable silence. It felt like a small but significant step toward rebuilding our connection. That evening, we cooked dinner together, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. Afterward, we sat by the fireplace, the crackling flames casting a warm glow around the room. Alice turned to me, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "I know this isn't easy for you," she said softly, "and I appreciate that you're willing to give us another chance." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. It's not easy for either of us, but I believe we can get through this if we keep trying. That night, we talked late into the evening, sharing our fears and hopes for the future. It was a vulnerable and intimate conversation, one that brought us closer together. We both acknowledged that there would be difficult days ahead, but we were committed to facing them together. The next day, we decided to go for a hike to a nearby waterfall. The trail was challenging but rewarding, and reaching the waterfall felt like an accomplishment. We stood together, watching the water cascade down the rocks, feeling a sense of renewal and possibility. As the weekend drew to a close, I realized how much this trip had meant to both of us. It wasn't a cure-all for our problems, but it was a crucial step in our healing journey. The time spent together, away from the distractions of everyday life, had allowed us to reconnect on a deeper level. Back at home, we continued to build on the progress we had made. We attended our counseling sessions faithfully and made time for each other amidst our busy schedules. There were still moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced them head-on, determined not to let them derail our progress. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Alice turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Do you think we'll ever fully move past this?" she asked. I considered her question carefully before responding. "I think the pain will always be a part of our story, but that doesn't mean it has to define us. We can learn from it, grow from it, and become stronger because of it." She smiled, a look of relief and hope in her eyes. "I believe that too, and I'm grateful for every day we get to work on this together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of contentment. Our journey was far from over, but we were making progress, one step at a time. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly hopeful about the future. Despite our progress, there were still moments when the past loomed large, casting shadows over our attempts to move forward. Trust, fragile and hard-earned, was tested daily, but we had learned to communicate openly, to address our fears and insecurities rather than letting them fester. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, Alice mentioned that the theater was planning a new production. "Jason's going to be in it," she said, her voice carefully neutral. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Jason had been an ever-present specter in our lives, a reminder of the betrayal we were trying to overcome. "How do you feel about that?" I asked, keeping my tone as calm as possible. Alice sighed. "It's complicated. I love my job, but I know his presence will make things difficult for both of us." We decided to discuss it in our next couples counseling session. Dr. Harris listened intently as we shared our concerns. "It's natural to feel anxious about this," she said. "The important thing is to set boundaries and maintain open communication." Alice agreed to limit her interactions with Jason to strictly professional matters and to keep me informed about any necessary contact. It was a challenging commitment, but it was crucial for rebuilding trust. A few weeks later, the new production began. Alice was busy with rehearsals, often coming home late. Although I understood the demands of her job, I couldn't help but feel a pang of insecurity every time she mentioned Jason's name. To cope, I immersed myself in my own activities and leaned on the support of friends and family. One evening, after a particularly long rehearsal, Alice came home looking exhausted. "Can we talk?" she asked, sitting down next to me on the couch. "Of course," I replied, bracing myself for whatever she had to say. "I've been thinking a lot about our situation," she began. "Working with Jason has brought up a lot of emotions, but it's also made me realize how much I value our relationship. I want you to know that I am fully committed to us. I don't want anything to jeopardize what we're building." Her words were a balm to my anxious mind. "I appreciate that, Alice. It's not easy, but knowing you're committed helps." As the weeks went by, we settled into a new routine. Alice was diligent about maintaining boundaries with Jason, and I worked on managing my insecurities. We continued our counseling sessions, which provided a safe space to discuss our fears and progress. One weekend, we decided to take a short trip to the coast. The ocean had always been a place of solace for both of us, and we hoped it would provide a much-needed escape from the pressures of daily life. We rented a small cottage overlooking the sea, and for a few days, we left our worries behind. Walking along the beach, hand in hand, we talked about our dreams for the future. We discussed our plans, both personal and professional, and the steps we needed to take to achieve them. It was a hopeful and rejuvenating experience, reminding us of the love and partnership that had brought us together in the first place. On our last evening, as we watched the sunset over the ocean, Alice turned to me with a serious expression. "I've been thinking about something," she said. "I want us to renew our vows, not in a big ceremony, but just between us. I want to reaffirm my commitment to you, to us." The idea touched me deeply. "I would like that," I said, feeling a swell of emotion. "I think it would be a meaningful step for both of us." Back home, we planned a simple ceremony in our backyard. We wrote our own vows, focusing on honesty, commitment, and love. On a quiet afternoon, under the shade of our favorite tree, we stood facing each other and spoke the words that reaffirmed our bond. Alice's voice trembled with emotion as she promised to always be honest, to cherish and respect me, and to work tirelessly to rebuild the trust we had lost. My own vows were filled with a renewed sense of hope and commitment, pledging to support her, to forgive, and to move forward together. As we exchanged rings, I felt a profound sense of peace. This wasn't the end of our journey, but it was a significant milestone. We had faced the darkest moments of our relationship and emerged stronger, more connected, and more determined than ever to build a future together. Standing there, hand in hand, I knew that the path ahead would still have its challenges. But for the first time in a long while, I felt truly optimistic about what lay ahead. We were no longer defined by our past, but by our commitment to each other and the promise of a better tomorrow. Life gradually began to resemble something close to normalcy. Our renewed vows had instilled a sense of hope and determination in both of us. Alice continued her work at the theater, adhering strictly to the boundaries we had set, while I found solace and distraction in my own pursuits. Yet, despite the progress, there were still moments when the past threatened to disrupt our fragile peace. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to find Alice sitting on the porch, her expression troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked, immediately sensing her distress. She hesitated before speaking. "Jason asked if we could have a private conversation about the play. He said it was important." A wave of unease washed over me. "What did you say?" "I told him I'd think about it," she replied, her voice steady but her eyes reflecting uncertainty. "I wanted to talk to you first." I appreciated her honesty and the fact that she had come to me before making any decisions. "What do you think he wants to talk about?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I'm not sure," she admitted. but I feel like it's something I need to address for closure. After a long discussion, we agreed that she could meet Jason, but only in a public place and with clear boundaries in mind. It was a difficult decision, but one that felt necessary for both of us to move forward. The next day, Alice met Jason at a cafe near the theater. I spent the afternoon on edge, unable to focus on anything else. When she returned home, I could see the weight of the conversation in her eyes. "It went well," she said, sitting down beside me. "He apologized for his part in everything and acknowledged the pain he caused. We talked about the play and how to keep things strictly professional. It felt like a necessary step." Her words brought a sense of relief. "I'm glad it went well. I trust you, Alice, and I'm grateful you handled it the way you did." As time passed, the encounter with Jason faded into the background, and our focus shifted to the future. We made a point to spend more quality time together, planning small getaways and exploring new activities. Each shared experience strengthened our bond and reaffirmed our commitment to each other. One evening, as we were cooking dinner, Alice suggested something that took me by surprise. "What if we went to couples therapy, not just for healing but for growth? I think it could help us build an even stronger relationship." I nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her suggestion. "I think that's a great idea. We've come a long way, but there's always room for improvement." We found a new therapist who specialized in relationship growth and development. Our sessions focused on communication, understanding each other's needs, and setting shared goals for the future. It was a different kind of therapy, one that looked forward rather than backward, and it brought a fresh perspective to our relationship. Through these sessions, we discovered new ways to support each other. We learned to express our love and appreciation more openly, to address conflicts with empathy and patience, and to create a vision for our shared future. The process was transformative, deepening our connection and solidifying our partnership. One weekend, we decided to tackle a home improvement project together. We had always talked about renovating the guest room, and now seemed like the perfect time. As we painted walls and assembled furniture, I was reminded of how much I enjoyed working alongside Alice. It was a tangible reminder of our teamwork and shared goals. During a break, we sat on the floor, surrounded by paint cans and tools, and Alice turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking about our future, about what we want to build together. I feel like we have a second chance to create something truly beautiful." I smiled, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "I feel the same way. We've been through so much, but it's made us stronger. I'm excited about the future we're building." As we continued our work, I felt a profound sense of contentment. The scars of the past would always be a part of our story, but they no longer defined us. We had faced our challenges head-on, and in doing so, had forged a bond that was stronger and more resilient. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but I felt confident in our ability to navigate it together. With each passing day, we moved further away from the pain of the past and closer to the promise of a brighter future. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a deep, abiding sense of hope and happiness. As we continued to build upon our relationship and look towards the future, unexpected challenges tested our resolve. One such challenge arose when Alice was offered a promotion at the theater, a position that required her to work closely with Jason on a new production. The news came as both a professional opportunity and a potential threat to our fragile reconciliation. Alice approached me with the offer one evening after dinner, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "They want me to lead the production team for the new play," she began. "It's a big opportunity for my career, but it means working closely with Jason again." I took a moment to process her words, feeling a surge of conflicting emotions. "It's a great opportunity, Alice," I said finally, trying to sound supportive despite my reservations. "But I understand why you're concerned." We discussed the implications at length, weighing the pros and cons of her taking on the role. In the end, we agreed that Alice would accept the promotion, but with clear boundaries in place. She assured me that she would maintain professionalism at all times and keep our relationship as her top priority. The first few weeks were challenging. Alice threw herself into her new role, spending long hours at the theater and immersed in the creative process. I tried to be supportive, offering encouragement and understanding, but I couldn't shake the underlying anxiety that accompanied Jason's presence in her professional life. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Alice came home looking exhausted. It's harder than I thought, she admitted, sinking onto the couch beside me. Being around Jason brings back so many memories, both good and bad. I listened quietly, sensing her frustration and vulnerability. You're doing great, Alice, I reassured her, placing a hand on her shoulder. I know it's not easy, but I believe in you. We continued to communicate openly about her experiences at the theater. I encouraged Alice to share her thoughts and feelings, and I did my best to provide a listening ear and a supportive presence. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of doubt and insecurity, but we faced each challenge together, determined to overcome it. As time passed, I noticed a change in Alice. She became more confident in her abilities and more assertive in setting boundaries with Jason. She found support among her colleagues and developed a network of allies who respected her professionalism and dedication. One evening, after a successful rehearsal, Alice came home with a smile on her face. I think we're onto something special with this play, she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. And I couldn't have done it without your support, without us working through this together. Her words touched me deeply. I'm proud of you, Alice, I said sincerely. You've faced this challenge head on, and you've come out stronger because of it. And as the production progressed, I attended several rehearsals and performances, witnessing firsthand the passion and creativity Alice brought to her work. It was inspiring to see her thrive in her element, and it reaffirmed my belief in her talent and resilience. One evening, after a particularly powerful performance, Alice and I stood together in the theater lobby, surrounded by the buzz of excited audience members. Thank you for being here, she said softly, squeezing my hand. For supporting me through all of this. I'll always be here for you, Alice, I replied, gazing into her eyes. No matter what challenges we face, we'll face them together. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. Our journey had been filled with ups and downs, but through it all, we had learned to trust each other, to communicate openly, and to support each other's dreams. The road ahead was still uncertain, but as long as we walked it together, I knew we could face whatever came our way. As Alice's career at the theater flourished, our relationship continued to evolve, strengthened by the challenges we had overcome together. We settled into a new rhythm, balancing our individual pursuits with our commitment to each other. One afternoon, Alice approached me with a thoughtful expression. I've been thinking about our future, she began, her voice filled with sincerity. And I feel like we've come a long way, but I wonder if there's more we could do to solidify our commitment to each other. I listened intently, curious about where her thoughts were leading. What do you have in mind? I asked, intrigued by her suggestion. She hesitated for a moment before continuing. I've been researching marriage retreats, she admitted. I think it could be a way for us to strengthen our bond and learn new skills for navigating challenges. The idea resonated with me. I think that's a great idea, Alice, I replied, feeling a surge of gratitude for her proactive approach to our relationship. It could be a meaningful way for us to invest in our future together. We spent weeks researching different retreat options, looking for one that aligned with our values and goals. Eventually, we found a program that focused on communication, conflict resolution, and fostering intimacy. It was held at a remote retreat center nestled in the mountains, a serene and picturesque setting that promised to provide the ideal environment for reflection and growth. The weekend retreat exceeded our expectations. We participated in workshops and activities designed to deepen our connection and enhance our understanding of each other. We learned practical tools for effective communication and practiced mindfulness techniques to reduce stress and promote emotional intimacy. One evening, during a guided meditation session, Alice and I sat together in silence, holding hands. It was a moment of profound closeness, a reminder of the deep bond we had forged through our shared experiences and challenges. As we walked along forest trails and shared meals under the stars, I felt a renewed sense of gratitude for Alice's presence in my life. We talked about our dreams and aspirations, about the future we hoped to build together. It was a chance to reaffirm our commitment to each other and to articulate our shared vision for the years ahead. On the final day of the retreat, we participated in a ceremony where we renewed our vows in front of a small group of fellow retreat participants. Standing together, surrounded by the beauty of nature and the support of others, we spoke words of love and commitment, promising to continue growing and evolving together. Back home, we carried the lessons and experiences of the retreat into our daily lives. We continued to prioritize open communication, mutual respect, and shared goals. Our bond felt stronger than ever, fortified by our shared journey of healing and growth. One evening, as we sat on our porch watching the sunset, Alice turned to me with a smile. "I'm grateful for everything we've been through," she said softly. "It's made us stronger, individually and together." "I feel the same way," I replied, reaching for her hand. "Our journey hasn't been easy, but it's brought us here, to this moment, together." As we sat in comfortable silence, watching the colors of the sunset fade into darkness, I knew that our love and commitment would continue to guide us through whatever challenges lay ahead. Our story was still unfolding, but with each chapter we grew closer, more resilient, and more deeply connected than ever before. As we settled back into our routines after the retreat, Alice and I found ourselves navigating a new phase of our relationship with a renewed sense of purpose and connection. The lessons we had learned and the experiences we had shared continued to shape our interactions and decisions, guiding us towards a future filled with hope and possibility. One morning, over breakfast, Alice broached a topic that had been on her mind. "I've been thinking about starting a family," she began, her voice soft but determined. "I know it's a big decision, but I feel like we're in a good place emotionally and financially." Her words caught me by surprise, though not entirely unexpected. We had often discussed our future together, but the prospect of parenthood brought a new level of contemplation and excitement. "I've thought about it too," I replied, feeling a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "It's a big step, but I think we're ready." We spent weeks discussing what starting a family would mean for us individually and as a couple. We talked about our hopes and fears, our dreams for our children, and the kind of parents we wanted to be. It was a time of introspection and planning, as we considered the impact of parenthood on our careers, lifestyle, and relationship. Eventually, we decided to take the next step and began preparing for the journey ahead. Alice consulted with her doctor, ensuring she was in optimal health for pregnancy, while I focused on creating a supportive environment at home. We made adjustments to our schedules and routines, prioritizing self-care and quality time together. As we awaited the news, each passing day brought a mix of excitement and nerves. We leaned on each other for support, sharing in the anticipation and uncertainty of what the future held. Our bond deepened as we navigated this new chapter together, united by our shared commitment and love. One afternoon, Alice returned from a doctor's appointment with a radiant smile. "I have good news," she announced, her eyes shining with happiness. "We're expecting." The words filled me with a rush of emotions, joy, relief, and a profound sense of gratitude. I pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling the weight of this momentous news settle between us. "That's wonderful, Alice," I murmured, overwhelmed with happiness. In the months that followed, we immersed ourselves in preparations for the arrival of our child. We attended prenatal classes together, decorated the nursery with care, and eagerly anticipated each milestone of the pregnancy. It was a time of anticipation and excitement as we imagined the future we were creating for our growing family. As Alice's pregnancy progressed, I marveled at her strength and resilience. She navigated the physical and emotional changes with grace, supported by our network of friends and family. Together, we embraced the challenges and joys of this new journey, united in our shared determination to create a loving and nurturing environment for our child. One evening, as we sat in the nursery surrounded by baby clothes and toys, Alice turned to me with a tender smile. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said softly, placing a hand on her growing belly. "I'm grateful for everything we've been through, because it's brought us here, to this moment, as we prepare to welcome our baby into the world." "I feel the same way," I replied, reaching for her hand. "Our journey hasn't always been easy, but it's led us to this incredible chapter of our lives." As we sat together, filled with anticipation and love, I knew that our shared experiences had prepared us for the challenges and joys of parenthood. Our story was evolving, and with each passing day, our bond grew stronger, anchored by the love and commitment that had guided us through every twist and turn. As Alice's due date approached, our anticipation and excitement grew exponentially. We had prepared meticulously for the arrival of our child, attending childbirth classes together, and finalizing all the necessary arrangements. Yet, amidst the joy and anticipation, there was also a hint of nervousness and apprehension. One evening, just a few weeks before the due date, Alice began experiencing contractions. We had been expecting this moment, but when it finally arrived, it still took us by surprise. We quickly gathered our bags and headed to the hospital, our hearts racing with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. At the hospital, the medical staff guided us through each stage of labor with professionalism and care. I stood by Alice's side, offering words of encouragement and holding her hand tightly during each contraction. It was a surreal experience, witnessing the strength and determination with which Alice faced the challenges of childbirth. After hours of labor, our baby finally entered the world, a moment that filled us both with overwhelming joy and relief. The sound of our baby's first cry echoed through the delivery room, marking the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. As the medical staff placed our newborn in Alice's arms, tears of happiness streamed down her face. I watched in awe as she cradled our child, overcome with emotion. "We did it," she whispered, her voice filled with love and exhaustion. I leaned in to kiss her forehead, feeling an indescribable sense of gratitude and awe. "You were amazing, Alice," I murmured, my heart overflowing with love for both of them. In the days that followed, we settled into a new routine as a family of three. Sleepless nights and round-the-clock feedings became our new reality, but we embraced each moment with gratitude and love. Our home was filled with laughter, diaper changes, and the sweet sound of our baby's coos. As we navigated the challenges of parenthood together, our bond deepened even further. We supported each other through the ups and downs, celebrating the milestones and comforting each other during the inevitable moments of doubt and exhaustion. One evening, as we sat together in the nursery, watching our baby sleep peacefully, Alice turned to me with a smile. "I never knew love could be this profound," she said softly, her eyes sparkling with emotion. "Our journey together has brought us here, to this incredible moment of parenthood." I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I feel the same way, Alice. Our journey has been filled with challenges and joys, but it's led us to this beautiful chapter of our lives." As we sat together, basking in the warmth of our growing family, I knew that our love and commitment had guided us through every twist and turn of our journey. Our story was still unfolding, but with each passing day, our bond grew stronger, anchored by the love and devotion that had carried us through every chapter of our lives together. With our newborn baby now a part of our daily lives, Alice and I adjusted to the joys and challenges of parenthood. Each day brought new discoveries and milestones as we navigated the responsibilities of caring for our child while nurturing our relationship. One morning, as we sat together at breakfast, Alice looked at me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking about how we can balance our careers and parenting," she began, her voice filled with determination. "I want us to support each other's ambitions while also being present for our child." Her words resonated deeply with me. Parenthood had brought a new set of considerations into our lives, and finding a balance was essential. "I agree," I replied, feeling a surge of gratitude for Alice's proactive approach to our family's future. "Let's discuss how we can create a supportive environment for both of us." We dedicated time to discussing our career goals and aspirations, exploring opportunities for flexible schedules and shared responsibilities. Alice continued to excel in her role at the theater, while I adjusted my workload to prioritize family time. It was a period of adaptation and growth as we embraced the challenges and rewards of parenting together. As our baby grew, we reveled in the everyday moments of parenthood, late-night feedings, diaper changes, and joyful giggles. We found joy in watching our child explore the world around them, marveling at their curiosity and resilience. One evening, as we played with our baby in the living room, Alice turned to me with a smile. "I'm grateful for our journey together," she said softly, her eyes reflecting love and contentment. "Parenthood has brought us closer than ever." "I feel the same way," I replied, reaching for her hand. "Our journey has been filled with challenges and blessings, but each step has brought us to this beautiful chapter of our lives." As we embraced the joys and responsibilities of parenthood, I knew that our love and commitment would continue to guide us through the adventures that lay ahead. Our story was evolving, marked by the growth of our family and the deepening of our bond. With each passing day, we cherished the moments of togetherness and looked forward to the future with hope and gratitude. In the 14th chapter, Alice and I faced unexpected challenges in our careers and personal lives. These challenges tested our relationship, leading to disagreements and external pressures. However, through open communication, compromise, and mutual support, we found resolutions that strengthened our bond. Reflecting on our journey, we realized how much we had grown individually and as a couple, reaffirming our commitment to each other and our family. Certainly. Here's a brief description of the 15th chapter based on the plan. In this chapter, Alice and I confront the lingering tensions and misunderstandings that have strained our relationship. Through heartfelt conversations and a mutual desire for understanding, we address past hurts and reconcile our differences. As we navigate through forgiveness and healing, we rediscover the strength of our bond and reaffirm our commitment to each other. This chapter marks a pivotal moment of growth and renewal as we embrace a future filled with hope and unity.